probably better to do my experimenting with my video before class. Okay. So I have my picture of my the shirt up, and I'm going to use charcoal. I'm going to start out using my pencil, just a regular old pencil. This is a HB that I used last time. I'm going to start out, when I start filling in the charcoal, I'm going to start with the vine charcoal. The reason I start with a vine charcoal, and I think I went over this before, is because it has a softer touch on the page. And if you wanted to make any corrections with an eraser, it's just, I guess it's like my method more or less is to sneak up on your drawing before you make any major commitments to the marks that you're making, especially when it comes to the darker marks with the compressed charcoal, because the compressed charcoal, as you guys probably are familiar with now, is pretty dense. So what I'm going to do is, if I just look at the photo, are you guys seeing my are you guys seeing the page? Are you seeing the?
We can see the page.
Okay, thank you. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably I want to try to fill the page as much as I can. So I'll try to avoid drawing like a little tiny thing. Charcoal in general is better used on larger sheets of paper. It's not an ideal medium for using with smaller images. Get out of here. Sorry, guys. Please.
Do you have a cat? I think I saw her in the corner of the screen yesterday, but I only saw her ears.
Yes, Mo, stop it. She's sorry. Mo, get down, babe. Sorry, guys. She's just a kitten cat, so she's kind of busy. All right. So what I'm going to start out with, I'll start out with just kind of, again, just kind of sketching the overall shape. And like I had mentioned before, the technique that I'm going to use on getting the shirt down is just some gesture. So if I look at the photo that I've got on the online, I'm just gonna kind of really loosely kind of block in some of the bits of the shirt. I'm also trying to leave enough room. So I probably should have started up a little bit higher, but I'm a little bit limited on my screen space. And so I'm just going to try to get as much of it as I can in there. The other thing I'm looking at is I'm looking at distances, relative distances. I'm not trying to get any details in just yet, but I'm paying attention to angles, right? So what you can do is you can put your pencil up against your image, and then kind of transfer that down and go, okay, that looks about right. So something like that. No need to erase at this point. You can erase later. And then when I'm looking at the fabric of my shirt, kind of comes down. I noticed too, like down below here. So the other thing in the next in our next module, I'm going to be covering perspective, and I'm going to show you guys how to do sighting. And the way you do sighting is you can use, if you just want to do it on your screen, you can put your image up on the side and then have your drawing paper on your desk. You can put your pencil up against whatever it is you're measuring. So for example, I have this box here. So literally what I could do is I can measure if I was going to draw the box, I could measure the box with my pencil by putting my finger, putting the top of the pencil at the top of the box and the bottom of my finger at the bottom of the box. If I can abstract that a little bit, the reason I showed you that is because that's the same kind of a thing that you can do on the screen of your computer in terms of getting relative proportions. So I'm doing it off screen, but what I did was I held my pencil up to the shirt image, and I put my fingers at the bottom the bottom of the rumpled shirt on the chair, and this was the top of the shirt, okay? And so if I wanted to do like a 1-to-1 ratio, I could do that. So I could just go, okay, I'm gonna copy this exact size on my computer, and I can measure it this way, right? One of the questions that's coming up for me initially is how much sleeve is happening down below? And let me change so I can show you what I'm looking at. So what I did was I put my pencil, the top of my pencil up here, and then I laid my my thumb down here. And so I had a kind of a distance this way, right? So once I have that distance, I can take my pencil, that distance, and I can compare it to this, which is really where I'm kind of curious about right now. Because it is such an amorphous shape, what I'm trying to do is I'm attempting to develop a relationship between how tall this thing is and how much further the sleeve goes down relative to this measurement. So for example, if I have, I wish I could do animation on here. If I have my pencil up here and down there, and then I keep my thumb there, you guys can do it too. I notice that if I bring the top of my pencil back down, I notice that it's about a third, this portion right here, from here where my mouse is down to here, is about a third of the entire length of my shirt that I measured, okay? So, no, oh geez, this is gonna be trouble, guys. Hold on, so let me, come on, baby, you can't be up here. All right, guys, so I'm gonna change my my share. So what I meant by that was, if I have a measurement that's this distance, I figured out that when I put this distance of my entire shirt up here, it's about this much, a third of the entire shirt is that sleeve, and so then I can go ahead and make a little tick mark down there. Does that make sense, you guys? Probably it's I may have to do a separate video on it. I've talked about it before, but it's where you're starting to use the drawing itself as a reference point. And so so let me just go ahead and get this kind of blocked in here. Okay. So I'm just doing a really light sketch right now. We've got this little tick mark down here. And then I'll start going over the identifying the hub and all that other kind of stuff. Okay, so if you guys are looking at that shirt image, you'll notice that the top of the chair is that kind of tension point. And the tension point is going down this way. And the shirt is being pulled. So you can see along that one shoulder, you can see that the collar, which comes in, let's see, maybe about like here. And you know, guys, it's not, the goal is not to be like photographically perfect in drawing. Okay, so like the way I have designed the class is that we're working on tools for noticing things. And now now that you have the tools for noticing things, we're going to use some of the tools for the dexterity to represent the things or render the things on the page. So we have the top of the chair is here. So that's going to be the point from which I have some fabric being pulled down. As they start to fill this out, it'll begin to make more sense. But this is the logic that I'm bringing to bear on my project here. So when it comes to the to the collar. I'm gonna use my eraser real quick. Clean my drawing up a little bit. Okay. So now so the first thing was sort of gestural, right? And now the second part that I'm trying to establish is it's sort of like a second stage gesture drawing where I'm starting to make some decisions about, is that too far from there? How big is this, say, collar relative to the pinch point of where the shirt turns the corner like this? What I wonder is, like, if I wanted to put the collar in and I drew a horizontal line across, would the collar end up at that point? So that's kind of, so what I'm doing, you guys, I'm trying to show you how I use marks that I've put on my page to help make other areas of the drawing correspond in a congruent way with the way that the shirt is actually laying on the chair. And so here's the collar here. I have kind of established this sort of horizontal line that comes across. And then, so this is my second stage. So the first stage would be, right, like the gesture. And then I'll just put it like gesture part 2, which is where you refine. And then the third part, I'm going to start paying attention to the points of tension. And then the fourth point, points of rest. And then fifth is where I start to block in the highlight and shadow and midtone. Okay. Don't worry about this, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to color the whole background black if I get to it in time. So so I'm moving from general to specific when I'm trying to draw something as complex as this. I think the thing that kind of gets people discouraged is that it's like you think, oh, I can't draw that thing. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Come on, babe. Come on, babe. Don't do that. People get discouraged at first because you think, oh, I can't draw that whole thing. But if you just kind of start to break it down into smaller parts, then it becomes more manageable. I'll tell you a story. I was a carpenter before I was a teacher guy. Well, I was a carpenter while I was a teacher guy. And the first time I ever built a house was with a guy in this place called Snohomish, which is up in east of Seattle, out in near the mountains, near the Snoqualmie Falls and stuff. And it was a really beautiful place. But I'd never built a house before, and this guy was kind enough to kind of show me how to do it. So one day I remember I helped him build the house, and he kind of showed me how to do it. I had enough skills to do it, but I didn't really know how to do the blueprints and stuff at that point. But I was only like 20 something. But I remember one day coming to work and looking at this house, and it was before he had arrived, and this early morning kind of rain was coming down, and I remember walking into the house and thinking, I had two thoughts. The first thought was, I could never build a house because it just seemed so overwhelming. And I think that's sometimes the first thought maybe that we approach drawing with when I give you an assignment or whatever, or you think, God, I wish I could draw that. And then you think of it in its entirety. But then a second thought came into my head. And the second thought was, but I did build this house. I helped build this house. So I realized at that point, it wasn't that I was lacking, say, confidence in the ability to build a house per se, even though, but I doubted my ability to do it all at once. And so the all at once thinking can sometimes discourage folks from taking on more complex projects. And so when you start to break it down into smaller parts, I find that that's really, really helpful. What I'm doing right now, you guys, is I'm kind of adjusting my proportions on this shirt. So, and that was something that I kind of never forgot. In that, like, even stuff that you're really good at, if you thought about it all at once instead of in steps, it might end up being like, no way, I'm not even going to bother trying because it's just too much, right? So, and in this case, a nice charcoal drawing usually starts with a decent under drawing. So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to use, since the collar has kind of an energy of its own, I'm going to look at this little part right here on the drawing, and that's okay. This little part of the collar coming down here, it might be a little bit big this way, but what I want to do is I'm trying to figure out where to start the top of the collar on the other side. And if I lay my pencil on the picture, it looks like the edge of this this collar goes straight up, and then the back of the collar starts. So, and when I look at that angle, it looks like it's something like this, and then it kind of shoots down, and there's that kind of shadow, and then there's the other bit of the collar coming here. Let's see. So you see, I'm just being really rough right now. I'm not being too specific about it. But what I will do is I'm going to put some time into my underdrawing before I go in with my charcoal. So you just kind of bear with me. And then later you guys can go back if you want to check this out. See, right now what I'm noticing is that the distance from the bottom here to the collar out there, it's just I got it too close. So I'm doing something wrong there, which is okay. I'm getting the proportions wrong. And so in that case, what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and draw this part down here. And that will give me, okay, I'm changing strategies is what I'm doing here. Live coverage of changing strategies on your drawing. Drawing 100. And now the collar, it looks like it's going to be sitting in more or less the right place. So you see, I started up here with the top, and let me see if I lower that light. Is that more visible, you guys? Okay. So now I've got the collar here. There's another little angle. I'm looking at angles too of my fabric. So when you guys do this at home with your own thing, and I would suggest that you at least give it an effort to do a drawing that's a little bit challenging, but I mean, you don't have to draw like a paper bag on fire or anything. You just, just keep it simple. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. And so here's another thing I want to mention, you guys, is that if you can get a decent starting point. So for example, I just want to get that collar. That's one of the main things going. If I can get my collar of the shirt on the page in a way that looks proportionally correct or correct-ish, then, and I'm happy with it, then what I can do is I can start to use this as a reference point for the length and the different angles that I can compare and contrast to the different other parts of the shirt that I'm drawing. And I'll show you what I mean as I do that. So here's this little, it looks like what I've done is this is too big. And in fact, you'll notice that there's this little kind of a thing here. I think I've made that too big. So I'm just going to kind of rein that in a little bit. Looks more like it. And so what I'm doing is, when you're drawing something complex and you're doing kind of a base drawing, what you're doing is you're drawing a map, and the map is not just about light, it's also about proportion and about the relative relationship of one part of the drawing or the thing that you're drawing to another part. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. You see what I mean, you guys? So I kind of got that little part in there. I had it way too big last time, and I just kind of adjusted it to make it look a little bit more like the thing itself. So these are the little changes that you guys can make as you go. But at this point, do not worry about getting any kind of any kind of shading in. The first thing you want to do is get that kind of image map on there. Now, if you want, you can also use the shapes. Remember when we did the exercise on noticing negative space? The exercise in noticing negative space is an exercise that you can also use to notice the shapes of shadows. So for example, there's a shadow in this shirt. And by the way, for those of you who arrived a little bit late, if you go onto our Canvas page, I'll just take a moment here to catch everybody up. If you go onto our Canvas page, into modules, if you want to follow along, we're doing a draw along today. And I have this thing called shirt on a chair. You can click on it. And this is the thing that I'm drawing today. And so what I'm starting to do right now, if you guys are a little bit late, is that I'm trying to make an establishing sketch, because on this one, I'm going to do it in charcoal. Now, you could also just go ahead and go for it with charcoal if you wanted. And ordinarily, I would do something like that with a lighter piece of charcoal. But because we're just starting out and I don't want you guys to get discouraged, we'll just start out with a pencil, no problem, okay? So now that I have this, I feel like it's a pretty good representation of the collar. I noticed that there's that kind of weird, it looks like a mango kind of shape up here. And that's the shadow part that comes down. And do you guys see that highlight that kind of comes in here? What I want to do is I want to pay attention. One of the questions I ask myself is, where do I start that fold, right? And so right now what I'm doing is I'm just gonna, and what is the angle of the fold? I'm just gonna kind of go ahead and block in. I'm gonna block in this shape here. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of in my eyes, the brain of my eye, if that's a thing. What I'm doing is I'm kind of switching back and forth to paying attention to the whole thing, and then paying attention to the different shapes of the shadow forms and the highlight forms. So if I focus on the highlight form, I notice that I made this a little bit too thick. Come back in there, kind of clean it up, make it a little bit smaller. And then now what I'm doing here is I'm kind of mapping in the angles of that fold. And then you'll notice here too that there's it looks like this could actually come down a little bit, but I'm just going to kind of run with it. And again, guys, this is photographic accuracy. In my view, you know what, if you want to photograph, take a photograph. If you want to draw something, drawing to me is really about like recording and a moment of seeing something in a way that you haven't seen it before. It could be like a close-up, or it could be just like taking your time. So I'm noticing that this part right here is actually, it kind of comes up a little bit higher there, and there's a shadow, and then there's this kind of like a space here. Now I'm doing this because I realized that my charcoal is going to be kind of less forgiving if I wanted to make any adjustments. So the time to make adjustments is right now in your drawing. Okay, so you can see this is starting to look a bit more like a map. I'm coming in here, and then there's the shadow underneath. Can you get Mo out of here? She's trying. She keeps jumping on my desk. Thanks. Okay, so here And now, so instead of trying to draw I could do that kind of the cross contour, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to draw that little shadow that's underneath the collar here. It's okay if you can't find it. We'll find her later. And then here's that little. So now I'm finding it a little bit easier to block in the rest of the shirt. And what this is showing me is that I've got too much over here. I can just wipe that away, no problem. Okay. And I'm looking at the distance here. Zoom in for you guys. I'm looking at the distance here on the photo. Is there a lot of the collar sticking up? Not terribly much. What's the angle? Well, it kind of looks like it's coming like this, down, and then shooting down like that. It's kind of weird to draw with the photo right next to me because I don't know whether to look at my paper or look at the camera that's filming what I'm doing right in front of me. So it's kind of interesting. It's a whole new experience. There's that sleeve. And then let's see here. So now what I want to do is I'm going to start paying attention. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to start paying attention to the that shadow form on the side, which gives the shoulder of the shirt its shape. Now remember, this is only going to make sense if you guys are kind of following along with the photograph. Okay, so it looks like I've got kind of a two. Looks like this one goes this way, actually. And it's gonna take some time, so just be patient. Enjoy yourself. You can take a break. Looks like I'm a little bit close. And then there's this bit that kind of comes like this. And then I have the pocket. So what I'm looking at is now what I'm going to look at is I'm looking at that shadow that kind of runs up here. So I have my hub point right there, and then I'm looking at the pull of the fabric, which comes at an angle like this, and then it comes down. Oops, let me get that going, guys. There we go. And then there's a little shadow there, and then I'll get this here. Then it kind of has this beautiful little arc that comes down like this. And if you want, you can kind of fill it in just to give yourself like a reference point, and bring that down. And again, this is just gestural sketching right now. Sometimes people call it just rendering, which means just like getting something down on the page so that you have an idea of where to go when you're ready to further develop your drawing. So I'm feeling pretty okay about my proportions. And what's kind of cool is that if you get your proportions, you know, in the right kind of orientation, or you know, like relationship, say one thing to another, the drawing will tend to kind of draw itself, and it'll make it a little bit easier. And this will happen over time. I'm also noticing that this part has a little bit of a growth there. All right. I realize I probably set myself too challenging an image here to draw, but I could have kept it simple, but I didn't want to be boring today. So now what I want to do, you guys, is I want to figure out where that pocket is. And the pocket, and I'll kind of show you what I'm looking at here. The pocket that I'm looking at right here. So what I've done is I've established my collar here. I've identified this shape and this shape. I've identified this shape and then this shadow down here. And now what I'm trying to do is I want the next kind of biggie is I want to get these pockets in there, and I want to get this angle on my shirt as accurately as I can. This will be really fun to draw, I think. And then this little, the little, I don't know what that's called. Do you guys know what that's called? Any sewers here? But it's the little like spear or whatever they call that for the cuff thing. And so now we're back. Okay, so if I look at my, if I kind of, another thing I do, you guys, is sometimes I'll blur my eyes when I'm looking at the thing I'm drawing, and then I'll look and I'll blur my eyes on my drawing, and that can sometimes make the proportional differences more evident. Because really what ends up happening is things start to blur together as just big shapes, and then they stop being all the details of what we know or what we think we know, what we're looking at. Okay, so I've kind of turned this corner here. There's this piece of fabric that has this little edge that comes up there. There's a little shadow here, and now I'm noticing it looks like, if I look at this part right here, let me go back and kind of show you what I'm talking about. So, and this is what I mean by using your reference material and your drawing as its own reference. So on the drawing, when I go back, you'll notice that I've already put in this, and I've put in the collar. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get this positioned correctly. So what I try to do is, there's a couple of things that line up. So what I do in my mind's eye is I ask, what is on the source material, like this, for example, what is there that I can hone in on and use as a point of departure to establish the location of this thing, which is the top of the pocket. So I have that, which would be like the sleeve curl. And then on the other end, if I just draw a straight line, I notice that it's almost at the same angle as this bit right here, but it's a smidge lower, okay? So those are the things that are going through my mind. I'm just kind of like slowing down my brain and saying what I'm thinking about, so you guys can kind of think through this in the same process. And again, this is just preliminary marks. So when I looked at it, it looked like there was a little bit of a space right here. And then the pocket came, and it looks like here's that little pinch point. The pocket comes here, and there we go. Okay. And so I've got that pocket there. I think I've got that line more or less there. I'm not going to worry too much about the details, but I'll go ahead and because it has that kind of it has a contrast to that shadow. Looks like I've got maybe it's a sharper edge there. It's not too bad. Okay. And then up here you can see, like, there's, if I use my negative space technique to look at the highlight, I can just start drawing the highlight there. And remember, if you guys look on the assignment, I put in an illustration from a drawing manual from like the 19-teens, where if you're drawing fabric, right? Okay, your fabric's going to have a multiple kind of area. This will be like the top, right? This would be the side, and the side would come down this way, and that way, right? Okay, so I'm doing the same kind of thing, and then under here would be the shadow, right? So I'm doing the same thing here. I'm trying to identify that shape of the highlight on the actual shirt itself. I'm not going to get too detailed. And then down here, again, I'm trying to figure out, well, if I were to draw like a triangle that way and that way, then I can get the other pocket down here. it has this kind of illusion of it being a little bit closer. I feel like I'll split the difference on this one. And then of course, as you guys go back, you play this back, or if you play it back later, you guys can just fast forward the boring parts and get to the part where you're in need of help. One down there. So you know what it looks like, you guys? It looks like when I put my, it looks like the angle of that is actually like this and not that. So when I compare it to my, when I compared it to my photo, it looks like I really had it go in the wrong direction. There we go. That's more like it. So you see how I did that? I made an adjustment on it. So I looked at the, held my pencil up, and then I just mapped it on. It's still a little bit, it's kind of hard to map your pencil back onto your drawing, but and then the sleeve comes up here. So another question I have, and so this is kind of like all the stuff that I'm saying out loud is what I would ordinarily not say out loud. I would just think it, you know. But what I'm trying to figure out is what are some of the strategies that I can use to get this where I want it to be. Okay. I feel like that might be a little bit big. All right. Here, there's that sleeve. So we got a pinch here. I've got a big kind of a shadow form that kind of goes here, and I'm just going to draw it over the entire thing. So instead of worrying about all the details, I'm just going to draw that shadow shape, and I'll show you, I'll go back and show you what I mean. So this shape right here is this shape right here. Okay. And so when you're doing under drawings for charcoal drawings, or when I do under drawings for charcoal drawings, what I like to do is to identify areas of shadow or mid-tone as I go. I'm breaking this up into steps. So right now what I'm trying to do is get the topography of the thing down, and then I'll go in and start looking at the shadows. But I wanted to show you guys that I started to transition into that a little bit here on the shirt. In fact, I think this needs to move up. So I'm going to move the whole thing. Just a hair. Yeah, I like that better. It's not a big difference, but it's big enough. That looks more like it. So just, you know, and the thing is, like, adjust as you go. It's no big deal. I'm going to pull this up because I noticed that it too is a little bit small. I've also noticed that it has kind of a dimension to it. So that it rhymes with that shape of the shadow. Looks like the shadow kind of pulls in a little bit. And then this pocket here comes like this. You'll see on the shirt drawing, there's this kind of beautiful arc that kind of comes down here. There's that interesting shape there. Gets pretty complicated in this area, so I'll see how well we can do. There's some. So now what I'm doing, you guys, is I'm starting to transition into drawing some of the shadows. Can I check in with you guys and see if this sketch is showing up okay on your screen? Should I lower the darkness level? Yes. Okay, great.
It's showing okay.
Okay, good. I'm not, because on mine it looks kind of blown out. So, okay, great. So as I'm going down here now I notice that my sleeve's a little bit close here. So I can move this over here. Then I'll take that. You see this little shape coming down here. There's that sleeve, and then there's this kind of beautiful little shadow coming up here. There's that little guy coming up a little bit higher, I think. So you see how much time I'm taking. And by the way, the more time you spend on your underdrawing, I think the more fun you'll have doing your finished charcoal. The charcoal is going to get messy, and I'll show you some techniques on how to keep it from getting everywhere. It's going to get everywhere no matter what, but that's just kind of life with charcoal. All right, so there's that. Then there's this really cool shape underneath the arm down here. Let's straighten that out for you guys. Let's see, so we've got that there, coming down there, and then it kind of comes in, cuts over. We've got that shape there. And see, there's that little ditty of a right little shape. That's going to be the white shape right there. Yeah, I mean, you can figure out the shape and then kind of and then fade it out. Yeah, the one thing that I want you guys to know is like so is that if you're going to do the shading, we're not creating like a coloring book outline to go back in and color in. What we're doing is we're creating a map, and I want to show, I'll show you when I get my charcoal going. I'm going to knock this back a hair, and I'll show you how I do that. But what I do is like, I don't want to just use it as like a kind of a paint by colors or a draw by colors. Really, when you guys are for doing the shading, this I usually start lighter and go darker, because the darker, I feel like it's, again, like when I use the compressed charcoal for the darker colors, for the darker shadows, and as such, when I do that, I try to do it last, because it's really hard to correct if I screw it up, or if I just want to make an adjustment, so yeah, Angie, you can use, you figure out the shape and just go for it. So you don't have to be this detailed, but I just wanted to show you like the full extent. So if you guys wanted, you could just kind of go with a general shape and then fill it out with the charcoal. And then, of course, Pickle the parrot has something to say about everything. All right. So I think what I'll do, I'd love to draw this part, but let's see, let me see if I can get in some of that. And, so I've got that there. Is this beautiful shape that goes like this. And sometimes, I mean, you guys probably have this too. Sometimes I get a little bit lost in what I'm looking at, because my eyes start crossing a little bit. And after a while, all these folds, they're going to just end up looking like gobbledygook. But persevere, because sometimes all that gobbledygook ends up making more sense as a totality than it does when you're just putting it together piece by piece, right? Okay. And again, I'm taking the time to do this so that you all can look at it later and fast forward the boring parts and then just get to what you want. And here's this And the sleeve, I'll just kind of get the sleeve in there. There's that kind of shadow that comes in like this. Now I could do a much looser drawing of this, but I thought I would just show you this, mainly because of the complexity of the shirt itself. So I've got some shadow coming in there and then up here. So the thing about just kind of going for it, it's you go for it. If you just want to start in with the charcoal, you certainly can do that and not sweat the the underdrawing. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. I find that when it comes to the study of the fabric and also just study in general of what you're looking at, things can tend to if you don't have a specific underdrawing, or you haven't, like, that's why, like, when I was first starting out as trying to learn to be an artist, I remember going through these reading like artist profiles and stuff and looking at these sketches that were like just studies, like they weren't even like the finished thing, and I'm like, God, I wish I could do that, like because to me their sketchy sketches were amazing. And then but then of course that was just one part of the larger picture of what they were doing, which like Peter Paul Rubens or somebody like that, right? So like, not that I'm any of those folks, but you just try to get you when you study, they show you all kinds of stuff. And all right, so I'm just going to go ahead and let's see if I can. There's that, and then get some charcoal. Okay, I'll get rid of this. Keep drawing notes on my drawing, which is probably not the best. So I'll get rid of that. Now, the thing is that you're, so I feel like that's fairly okay. I'll go ahead and get the chair, edge of the chair in there, which kind of comes down like this, and that. And then front of the chair here, across. Yeah, the leg of the chair is coming down. There's that leg down there in the back. All right, so I'm gonna turn on the light here. Does that blow out the camera, guys? I'm trying to give a little bit more light. All right. So I'm going to start out with some vine charcoal, and the first thing what I'll do sometimes is I'll just have another sheet of paper, because as I draw, the backside of my hand will get covered with charcoal and that kind of bugs. So just to try to keep it, clean on the page. Doesn't really matter, because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up blocking in the solid color in the back. So the first thing I want to do here now is I don't want to do outline now with my charcoal. I do not want to outline. What I'd like to do is I want to start to build in some values. So Yeah, you definitely, Angie, you could just blend it, you could blend it in and like, maybe you're just calling it the same thing, but that's what I call like sneaking up on it. So like, I'm just gonna kind of like, I could bring this in and here, and then you sort of start to fill it out. Is that what you mean? Yeah, it is hard to make something look like a real shadow, but again, like it goes back to that thing, like you never build a house, right? You start out just putting together what you're seeing and trusting what you're seeing. And then slowly but surely, these weird forms that you're putting on your page, even though you might think they're in quotes like wrong or incorrect or whatever, they're not. They're what you see. And so I'm not sure if that's kind of, I mean, it is hard to get the shadows in there at first. So you see, I'm just kind of, I am kind of just going in and kind of just, now what I'm doing is as I'm doing this, you guys, I'm not, it looks like I'm coloring it in, but what I'm doing is I'm looking at my photo and I'm kind of just, I'm trying to map what the shadows look like. And let me, you know what, I want to show you, let me show you what my brain is doing. And so I'm going to open Photoshop and use Photoshop as a, let's see if I can get it to work. So what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to block in some of these kind of deeper dark shadows. But I don't want to commit to the super dark yet. I'm using my Vine charcoal just with a light touch. You can also use your finger, so you can see when I rub that, it just practically rubs all the way off. Notice I'm not outlining it, right? I'm just kind of paying attention to what is the shape of that shadow, right? I can also come in there and cut the shadow out. Are you guys still seeing my make sure you guys are still seeing that. Also notice that sometimes you'll hit like a sharp part where there's something that won't draw nicely. Also, the vine charcoal comes in different hardnesses too. You can get soft or hard, medium. So let me show you what I'm doing. I'm going to change my share. So this and let's do Photoshop. So we're in Photoshop right now, and so what my eye is doing is I'm trying to pay attention to what are these shadows? What's the shape of the shadows? And here's what I'm gonna see, this layer. Okay. So so if I boost the darks and I knock down and I bring up the lights. Okay, see what's happening here is these are the shapes of the shadows that I'm really trying to notice, like this shape here. If I knock away the midtones, now I'm just looking. So this is what my eyeball is doing when I'm looking at the shirt. I'm almost like in my mind's eye, I'm trying to like I'm trying to make all these shadows shapes, and I stare at them until they become shapes. And so that's what I'm trying to draw as I fill it in. If you guys have Photoshop, you're welcome to use this technique if you want. But if you think of them as like islands, you know, kind of like popping out, like there's an extreme version, you can see if those are just the shadows. So that's what I'm working on when I'm looking at the full-size image here. My eye is trying to separate, and that's when I when I did that, what I'm trying to show you is that's the kind of thing that the negative space exercise is really good at, in training your eye to sort of blur out certain parts of the subject matter, so that you can get the kind of, I guess, what we call like the bones of the of your drawing. You can also use a paintbrush. Some students I know use paintbrushes. That's okay. I definitely could have picked an easier thing to draw, you guys, but instead I went over the top of this thing here. Shadow up here. So I'm not ignoring my underdrawing at all. I'm actually using it, but I'm just not using it in the way that one might use like a coloring book or like stay in the lines kind of thing. I'm just more or less like using it like, okay, that's where the shadow bits are. You can use your finger if you want to kind of blend the edges. That's a lot of fun too. Makes kind of a mess. But what's nice about the vine charcoal is you can erase it a little bit. Not totally, but you can kind of get some nice edges on it. So that's kind of why I like to use it at first. I have less success doing that with the compressed charcoal, because it has such a dense pigment. Okay. Now I'll go back in there with my eraser. So I'm just trying to establish some of those grays. You can use some of the ambient, charcoal on your finger. The other thing that I think kind of there's that bit there. Okay, the other thing I think that sometimes what folks do is they think, oh, well, it's in color. How can I draw something in color, black and white? And the way that you can do that is just by thinking in terms of shadow, midtone, and highlight. And really, that's it. There's no like translation between color and black and white if you're looking at the right dimension of the in quotes, right? In quotes, the right dimension. I'm just trying to get some of these marks in there. I'm using my finger to help blend it in and make it a little less harsh on the edges there. So, so Angie, is this kind of like what you were talking about in terms of like blending the, kind of developing the shadows, making it look, realistic? Okay, yeah, I mean, I think that's totally legit to use your finger. Let me see if I have a little paintbrush here. Stuff. Just reaching up into my materials. So I have, you can also use some paintbrushes if you want. Paintbrushes are also a way of blending in the color. In some cases, it's almost like easier to do like some of this blending with a paintbrush afterwards than your finger. I'll come in there later and kind of clean this up. And then there's bits over here that I didn't really draw fully, but I don't really care. I'll just kind of like knock them in as quickly as I can here. So I just use my finger because I have a real light shadow on there. You could actually just use your finger to kind of go in and give the entire shirt some tone. Or you could use a brush, kind of blend it in. The brush will tend to keep the see this kind of marks here. Those marks happen because the charcoal is hitting the very top of the paper's texture, and then it ends up kind of operating like almost like a dry brush effect on painting or three-dimensional objects. And so this is something I think that is one of the most difficult things to do is not the drawing part. I think it's just like the combination of gearing your mind in a different way, and in terms of not thinking about drawing the outline of something or drawing the descriptive lines of something, but in fact what you end up doing is drawing the shadows. And I'll show you. I'll go back in with my eraser and kind of see if I can make this look a little more appealing. It looks like a hairy mess right now, but I'm hopeful that it will come out okay. And now I'm going to come in here and try to reestablish some of the portions of my drawing which I can't see anymore. So, so the flatness comes with the flatness will come when you don't have a wide, or at least a broad enough array between absolute super black and absolute white. And that's going to take a little bit of courage to get so the vine charcoal always looks flat. And I think the reason is just because of the nature of the vine charcoal. It's a flat. It doesn't have a high dynamic range. In other words, it doesn't represent super black very well. It only represents kind of darkish gray really well. And so that's where, when later on, I'm going to come in and I'll start to add in some of the some of the deep dark shadows with my my compressed charcoal. And if you find that your drawings are kind of flat, the compressed charcoal may actually end up helping that out. So I didn't end up drawing this bit out here, but I'm going to go ahead and just block it in. So you can see like the kind of the character of the pencil drawing is much more refined. It has more detail and that kind of thing. So whatever I thought of my underdrawing, I can't be that committed to holding on to it, because in fact, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just draw the entire thing. And so my underdrawing was really more to do with establishing zones of darkness and lightness, and then also establishing a good basis for the the compositional balance. So making sure that one thing looks more or less like, or at least, let me rephrase that. What I'm trying to do is the underdrawing was really not about detail, but it was about trying to make sure that I have a relative relationship that looks compositionally and proportionally, accurate, so that I can come in here and then I can start to develop some of these values on my own. Now, charcoal drawings can be extremely detailed and they can look incredible. They have their own kind of beautiful character. However, the secret to that super beautiful detail is, I think, the size. So charcoal doesn't lend itself to really small, detailed drawings. It lends itself to like larger, kind of sweeping drawings. Let's see. I may not fuss with all this down below, but let's see if I can get it there anyways for you guys. So another thing I like to do is just make a couple marks. And so like you see this little shadow on the collar, make a few marks and I just rub it as my finger becomes more encrusted with charcoal. I can kind of move it around like that. And so what I like to think of my fingers as are almost like the mid-tone developers of my drawing. There's the chair back there. Go ahead. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to give this some definition, but the main thing that I'm trying to get in here are just some of the main, I don't know what to call it, like territories of shadow that we're dealing with. Yes. Okay. Oops. I can use my paintbrush here, kind of blend in a little bit. All right. All right, now, of course, it's okay to clean your hands every now and then if you want. I'm going to use a piece of paper just to cover up. And what I want to do, I'm going to start cutting in some of the lighter. I'm going to draw with my eraser, you guys. So let's see whether, and actually, I'll draw with my eraser, but I would like you guys to go in as well with white chalk. Okay. And some of you guys are already doing this. And the other thing I also do is I try to clean up my eraser on a separate piece of paper. And then I notice there's like a highlight that comes across here. And then it's like there's a highlight that comes like that. And then I've totally lost my other pocket over here, which is a bummer. So, but because I've already kind of put it in there, and I have the relative relationship to this shadow over here, I can probably just do my best guess and with my eraser and bring it back. Okay, let's do it. here a little bit. And I'll try to get that curve back in there. And I can always, so even if I erase or I take away too much, that's okay. I can always go back in and kind of correct. So I've also noticed that up in here, some wrinkles coming down there, and then there's all those little beautiful marks up on the thing there. All right. Now, all this is going to end up getting really dark later. The other thing I realize is there's this shape that I kind of lost up here, which is that beautiful. Comes down, and then so now what I'm doing is I'm just drawing with my eraser, and I'm actually using it like I might use the same technique when we were doing the cross contour drawings. Now I tend not to sweep it with my finger because my finger usually looks like that, and then it's going to wreck everything. So then there's this thing that comes up here. Kind of reestablish this nice clean line here. So this is going to come down here. So the eraser is actually a drawing tool, right? So you want to make sure that you use your eraser as a drawing tool. So I do have some news for you guys. I'll send you a message. But I'm going to have surgery on my shoulder, and that means I won't be able to draw for you anymore. And so I'm trying to find a person who will take over the class for the remainder of the semester. But you will be in great hands no matter what. All right. And then there's this bit up here. I'm not worrying too much about, this is I think I've overestimated myself here on this drawing. See what I can do. There. This here. I'm starting to get a little bit lost in all the folds up in here. So at this point, we've got some highlight here, and then that kind of comes around and down, which I probably won't end up drawing. So at this point, now remember, you're building a drawing. You don't judge your drawing until you have a chance to really, at a certain point, you guys, your drawing will start to reveal itself, and it'll start to show you that you're doing a great job. And so what I'm going to do now is I have a piece of compressed charcoal here, and now I'm going to come in here. I don't know, guys. I'm just now met with the dean about the different professor, and so just today I met with him, and so we're going to look around. Probably not for like a few weeks, so more than a few weeks, very likely, because I don't have a date. So I just wanted to give you guys that early warning. It may end up just being a few weeks of the semester, you guys. So, which I hope is the case. Never, don't fear, it'll be okay. So now, so this is my compressed charcoal. I'm coming in here hot. I'm gonna really try to get this dense, dark. And so this, when you, Angie, when you were talking about, it looking flat, this is where your flatness will go away. Oh, wow. I didn't know it's highly recommended. I thought I had terrible reviews on it's usually only the people who are unhappy with professors on rate the professor. So I never look, hurts my feelings. All right, here we go. But that's very kind, thank you. And so I'm trying to get this come up here. Well, I'm getting there. It's not beautiful, but I'm getting there. And I'm also working small. I usually work like twice as big when I'm using my charcoal. And the other thing too that I think is a little bit of a bummer with the online is that we don't get to put up our drawings on a wall, stand back, and really like check them out, because there's something. That's another thing I want to recommend for you guys to do is as soon as you start to feel discouraged or whatever, just stand up and take about 10 steps back and look at it, right? Drawings aren't necessarily meant to be looked at the same distance that you drew them, right? Sometimes drawings only make sense when they are from far, far away, and that's okay. Not all art, I guess what I'm saying is, as an artist, you're going to be super close to the work. You're going to be so close that you're going to start seeing everything that's wrong and more than you're going to see everything that's right. And someone's going to come along and they're going to go, oh my God, how did you do that? You're amazing. And you're going to go, no, I didn't do that. But the thing is, it's true. You are amazing. So yeah, just don't judge yourself. Don't judge yourself. Let yourself just put that judgment in the waiting room. Just not worth it, because it cuts everybody's fun off. And you know what, and so here's the other thing, you guys, every drawing you do gets you closer and closer to being better at it, whatever better is for you. So if it's an inner vision that you have, or maybe you're trying to get better at drawing dolphins or whatever it is, it's totally fine. Nothing against dolphins. Dolphins are great. So you can see the drawings already sort of starting to come together. This is pretty much what I'm expecting out of your charcoal drawings, especially given the scale that we're working at. Let's face it, guys, these are pretty blunt tools to be using on a piece of paper this small. When I did the drawing before, I was using this minute little drawing, this pencil, right? So, just don't sweat it. Everything's going to work out. So now what I'm doing is, guys, notice I'm going to go back to the photo and just kind of refresh a little bit and tell you what I'm working on. So what I'm paying attention to now is I'm paying attention to these sharp edges right here. And so when I have my black charcoal, I'm going to hit like this right down there, and I'm going to try to make, because that's the thing that makes it pop. The contrast between the ultra dark and the highlight. And just like if you guys look on that diagram that I gave you, you'll notice that there is an abutment, or like a juxtaposition is an arty-farty word, which means one thing next to another thing. The juxtaposition of really dark next to really light. And that we take it for granted, but once you start to notice it on a daily, you won't not notice it ever. It's sort of like one of those things that once you learn it, it's like the bike thing. Once you learn it, you'll never forget it. Like you just always start noticing stuff. So drawing for me, you guys, and I'm going to go to my grave with this one, is always about giving myself an excuse to notice stuff. And I think that, and I'm gonna go down with that. So So what I'm doing here, so you'll notice that in the center of that shirt, there's a really dense amount of darkness that comes right up against some very light parts of the shirt. And here's that little shadow there. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. And so remember, I did that eraser thing. Now I can come in here and really start to kind of get a better looking pocket and be more precise about it. And then I also noticed that there's a little bit of a line that comes along here. Okay. I'm just ever so gently drawing. I realize you guys are going to kill me because your whole kitchen table is going to be covered in black mess. So if you have roommates or partners, whatever, and you're eating spaghetti and suddenly their spaghetti turns gray, then you can just tell them it's my fault. That's fine. Okay. So that was that kind of funky shape that we saw before. Kind of beautiful shadow underneath here. Really take that shape. So now I'm kind of getting into it. It took me a while to get into it, but I'm starting to feel like, I mean, this is not, I'm not going to hang this in an art show, but the thing is, I'm really starting to, it's kind of like familiarity with a neighborhood, you know, you can think about like what you're looking at as a kind of a neighborhood. The more you look at it, the more familiar you get with it, the more you understand the different kind of topologies of the area and the different shapes, the different dimensions of the thing. And I think that's great because like, if you think about it, like what a cool thing that you can just draw. I mean, as a kid, you just draw, you're drawing what was inside your imagination, or maybe you're drawing a flower. It didn't matter if it looked like anything. You know, there's all this kind of commentary out there about when did we forget how to draw? Well, it's not about forgetting how to draw. It's just paying attention, really. I think once you start growing up, it's harder to pay attention like we used to as kids. So this is a way of kind of keeping track of that habit. And I have to say, I feel lucky that I still have it mostly. And I kind of relate to kids more than adults sometimes. Not really, but yeah, just the honesty of seeing, you know. I mean, I'm blabbering on, but I don't know what else to say while I'm drawing. So now I want to protect this little area right here because that's that super highlight area. And then over here, I want to try to get that. Now you see what I mean? Like with the compressed charcoal, when I use the vine charcoal and I rub it with my finger, it tends to just kind of be very agreeable and becomes a mush. But with the compressed charcoal, it's less forgiving, and it will sort of retain that mark on the page. And so here's another part of the shirt that I want to try to get. And this is where the other thing too, guys, I want to show you is that you can use like a file, nail file, or even a piece of a piece of paper or a piece of cardboard. Something stiff is probably better. And so if you want, you can actually make a point on the edge of your charcoal if you want to get some really nice detailed lines in there. And that's okay too. There we go. Here. Some really dense blacks in here, really beautiful dark blacks. Looks like it got some texture. So again, guys, I'm building this drawing. It is nowhere near finished, but I'm building the drawing. I'm just trying to develop the landscape of darks and lights in the drawing itself. Now, what's interesting over here is that this is actually the reflected light that's coming off of the floor. So let's see here. I think I've lost some of my definition there. So let's see here. That. This has to come down. Be like that. Okay. Comes this down. Nice. Beautiful shadow coming up here. Here. Oh, I see. So cool. I made a little mark that helped bail me out of a thing that I didn't notice. There we go. And it looks like this is a much darker. All right. I'm a mess, but I'm going to keep going. So at this point, what I want to do is, because I do have some areas of my drawing that are more stark in terms of the differences or the boundary between a very dense black and a medium black, I can come in here and kind of blend in these shadows a little bit and try to get them to look a little bit more like we know what we're doing. There we go. Looks like I got to get some dark shadow in there. So now I'm just coming in here and I'm just kind of softening it up a little bit, because I'm gonna shoot back in here with my with some white and try to give it even more dimension. So if you guys want to experiment with the white chalk, you can. Again, this is looking pretty rough because I think I've overestimated how much detail I could get on a small sheet of paper with this complex thing. So maybe shoot lower than I did. Maybe don't make too many wrinkles in your thing. All right. So I have a piece of white chalk here. And with my white chalk, now keep in mind, realism is not the point. Realism is not the point. The point is to create a piece of drawing that reflects what you saw. Proportion is just one aspect of what you're seeing. So a lot of times people will judge their whole drawing. They'll say, oh, I suck at drawing because it doesn't look the right size or whatever. That's okay. Like, at least you're doing it, you know? Don't be discouraged. It takes a while to get used to doing this. Here's that weird gray thing. And the other thing too is that if you judge, like, there's so many dimensions to drawing that I feel like it's that all at once mentality. Just like that, just get that out of your head. Don't do it. The all at once mentality is going to defeat you every time. But if you go, you know what, I'm really good at shading, but when it comes to proportion, I need a little work. Or when it comes to this, I need a little work. That's cool. That's cool that you know that. That's the whole point. So notice I have like a sharp edge here. I want to bring that up. And I'm going to get even a denser piece of charcoal. Where's my charcoal box? Run out of time, guys. I have this big chunky black one here. And then what I noticed is there's this kind of beautiful edge coming up here, sharp edge. And I need some deep shadow up in there too. There we go. So if I compare and contrast to what I'm looking at and I blur my eyes, what I start to notice is that my shadow areas and the dense areas are kind of rhyming. They don't have to be perfect. They're rhyming. You're getting the same energy. You're getting the same proportion. you can work on different parts of your ability to draw at different parts of your drawing career, as they say. So don't feel like you got to do it all at once and you're a failure. You're not, okay? Right now we're learning. The thing about drawing classes, you guys, and I wish my teacher told me this when I started, because like I thought you were just supposed to do everything. So when you break down the drawing process down into its constituent parts, you know, first there's noticing, then there's putting what you noticed down on paper in a way that rhymes with what you noticed. That's a really hard thing to do. Then later you start to refine the resemblance between what you've noticed and what is on your page. And as that becomes more and more refined, that's usually what people associate with so-called good drawing. But in my view, what that is it's a coalescence of multiple different skills that I'm trying to help you guys develop, which is number one, say gesture drawing, getting the thing into a proportional organization, right? Or it could be like shadows, it could be identifying negative space and so on. So I'm just shooting in some of this really kind of dense, dark stuff here now. I could keep going on this drawing. And then I've got this really dark area right in here. Oh, bummer. Then I also like to use the corner of my the edge of the charcoal, and I can, so I have this kind of dark edge right here. I can just use it. Like, see, it's kind of neat, huh? Yeah, I got the edge of the chair, and then I can get this part. I can use that part of my charcoal here, bring it down, down, down. All right. Yeah, got some here. Oh, there's nice. I liked, my eye always goes to the deepest, darkest parts of the drawing of the thing I'm looking at, because I studied printmaking in Italy many moons ago, and printmaking, I'm telling you guys, if you want to learn how to draw and you're into drawing kind of, realistically, you go, if you go to printmaking, and we have a great printmaking teacher at Miracosta, or you could go anywhere. Also the Athenaeum, which is at Barrio Logan in, it's in Barrio Logan at the Bread and Salt Art Gallery. They have open print shop hours on Fridays, I think from 11 to 3. And so if you're really curious about anything to do with printmaking, come on by the Miracosta campus, or you could go to Barrio Logan and check out what they do over there. There's a guy named Chris Pena who runs it, and yeah, there's just some really great people over there. There's some good shows coming up on the 30th. There's an opening of a former student of mine. I'm very proud of her. She has her own first solo museum show at the Mingay Museum. And she's an Iranian American artist doing work about her family and memory. Let's see what else is going on. Put up like a little calendar for you guys. There's some cool videos I've seen online too, where there's a woman who goes around and she videos visits to art galleries like in Chelsea, New York, in Milan and junk like that. It's really nice because it's all contemporary art, and you can get a sense of what people are doing elsewhere in the world. Okay. I'm going to take my white again, and I'm just going to kind of come back in here and start playing around. This is a, and the thing is, if you go, what I try to do is if I wanted to really blend the whites in and make them kind of a light gray, I could go over existing color like that. But if I wanted the white to show up as like a strict, say a strict white, let's say I wanted to do, let's say I wanted to do like over here, I can take this away and then I can hit it with the white. And it gives me a more solid representation there. The other thing too is that also with like colored pencils, which I hope we will be able to get to, is that you can use the white pencil as a blending pencil. It does, colored pencils have their own kind of reality. They're very, very fun to work with, but they do over time kind of tend to haze over a little bit. So what I'm focusing on when I'm using my white chalk are the highlight parts. And it's not showing up terribly much, but it is giving a little bit of life to the drawing. It's a little bit of preliminary stuff going on here in the pocket area. So I'm gonna bring my chalk down there. And then there's this bit here, which I really want that to kind of show up better. All right. Not the greatest, you guys, but what I'd like to show you is you can also kind of come in with, I'm going to come in with my vine charcoal, my little vine charcoal, and I'm just going to kind of use the side of it. Start to fill in the background a little bit. I know mine's I also noticed, you guys probably noticed too, that this black from the compressed charcoal has a much cooler effect than the vine charcoal, which is actually just naturally burned wood. The compressed charcoal is at times a combination of pigment and charcoal itself. But it does have a binder. So. All right, so it looks funky, but again, I'm not done. But what I can do is I can come in here with my finger if I want, kind of start to blend in a little bit of these, give myself some, little pulls of shadow. There's also something called fixative, which you can buy, and it's a spray. It's almost like a surface adhesive, but it's not sticky. And what you can do is you can spray it on. It'll fix or it'll freeze the pigment on the page so that you can go back over it and adjust without too terribly much fanfare. Because after a while, what'll happen, you guys, is that your paper will become saturated to the point where it can no longer accept the pigment. So this is not now. Notice the character of this drawing is completely different than the ones I've done with pencil before, and again, it's because the charcoal is a more I want to say it's a more gestural drawing tool, unless you get big, and then those small gestures can become these kind of beautiful details. I just saw an artist last night, really amazing artist, did photographically realistic drawings with pencil and charcoal. It's a tricky medium because it is so messy. But have fun, see where you can go. I would say pick something less complicated than I did. Also, I think, well, I used to have a charcoal pencil. So I can shoot that little shadow in there over there. And give it a little life here. I'll blend that in. Okay, so guys, I'm about to call it a day here, but I wanted to give you kind of an idea of how you could go about drawing something hopefully less complicated than this, but just how you can go ahead and give yourself a way of drawing with charcoal that it'll give you a map. And again, like, keep track of this kind of stuff. So hopefully the draw along went okay, and you guys can pause this or fast forward it to wherever you'd like to, wherever it's most useful for you, really, is what I wanted to say. But again, you don't have to go at it with a pencil first. You can also go at it with a light touch on your vine charcoal. Yeah, and then of course use your fingers. You could also use your paintbrushes to blend. You could use what's called a blending stick or a stump, and those you can buy at the art store. I had one that I showed you guys before, but it looks like a twisted up piece of paper. I've also just really tightly twisted up a piece of paper towel around the tip of a pencil and used that, as a blending tool, right? The one thing I definitely want to warn against is don't use anything wet. If you put water or anything wet on your drawing, you may end up it's gonna saturate the paper, and you won't really have a chance to alter it the way that we're doing with our fingers and that kind of stuff. So what I would do is later with my draw, I would get my charcoal pencil and come in here and start getting some of those details in, because I feel like this is more or less what I could accomplish with the charcoal as such. So, all right. So guys, hopefully that helps, and I look forward to seeing your drawings on Monday. I will keep you in touch on the whole teacher thing, and